All right, let's talk about a book that completely shook up biology and is still one of the most argued about science books ever written. Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene. This book did way more than just explain evolution. It gave us a completely new and kind of radical way of looking at pretty much all of life, including, well, us.
So, to really get why this book was such a big deal, you have to start here. Back in 1859, Charles Darwin gave us the first real scientific explanation for why we're even here. But even after Darwin, huge questions were left unanswered. Dawkins basically picked up the torch, building on Darwin's work to tackle that ultimate question, what is man, from a totally different direction.
The whole point of the book really boils down to this simple but massive question that Dawkins asks right at the beginning. Why are people? Now, for the longest time, we looked at evolution from the top down, thinking about what's good for the species or maybe what's good for the individual animal. But Dawkins said, nope, let's flip that upside down. He called it the gene's eye view. And what you've got to understand is this isn't some brand new theory that replaces Darwin. It's Darwin's theory, just looked at through a different lens. It's like one of those optical illusions, where you look at it one way and see a vase, and then you blink and suddenly you see two faces. Dawkins argued that once you make that flip, once you start looking from the gene's perspective, a ton of mysteries in biology just click into place.
Okay, so this brings us to the heart of it, right? That title, the selfish gene. What on earth does he actually mean by that?
It's funny, Dawkins himself has said he kind of regrets the title. If he had a do-over, he might have called it the Immortal gene. Because the keyword isn't really selfish, it's gene. He wasn't trying to make a moral point that we're all driven by greed. The emphasis is on the gene as the thing that natural selection is actually working on. So let's be crystal clear. Selfish is just a metaphor. Genes don't have feelings or little evil plans. It's just a powerful shorthand way of saying that the genes that get passed on are the ones that are good at getting passed on. They behave as if they are selfishly trying to survive, and they build things, like you and me, to do it for them. We are their vehicles. In this grand drama of life, Dawkins says there are really two main characters. First up, you've got the replicator. That's the gene. He calls it an immortal coil because while our bodies grow old and die, our genes can, in theory, live forever, just leaping from one body to the next, generation after generation. And the second character, well, that's us. You, me, your dog, that fly on the wall. We are the survival machines. Our bodies are these unbelievably complicated machines built by a temporary team of thousands of genes, all working together for one ultimate purpose: keep those genes safe and get them into the next generation of survival machines.
All right, so if this is all true, if we're just vehicles for our selfish genes, then it kind of begs a question, right? Why isn't the natural world just a constant, brutal, nonstop battle royale?
Yeah, I'm talking about altruism. It's the classic puzzle. Why would a bird scream to warn its flock about a predator, basically putting a giant "eat me" sign on its own back? Why would a mother risk everything for her kids? Doesn't that fly in the face of selfishness?
The answer is a brilliant idea called kin selection. And this is where that gene's eye view just makes everything make sense. See, a gene for help your family doesn't care which body it's sitting in. From the gene's perspective, saving your sibling, who shares 50% of your genes, is just another way of saving itself. So a gene that makes you altruistic towards your family can actually spread like wildfire because it's constantly helping copies of itself survive in other bodies. It's just good business for the gene.
Okay, puzzle number 2, animal fights. Why is it so often just a bunch of posturing and puffing out chests and showing off? If it's all about survival of the fittest, why not just go for the jugular every single time?
For this, Dawkins brings in a little game theory. It's a concept about an evolutionarily stable strategy, or ESS. Imagine a population of fighters. You've got your hawks, they always escalate and fight hard. And you've got your doves, they just posture and back down from a real fight. Now, if you're a hawk and everyone else is a dove, life is great, you win everything. But what if everyone's a hawk? It's a bloodbath and everyone gets seriously hurt. The winning strategy, the ESS, is usually a mix. It's a strategy that once most of the population adopts it, simply can't be beaten by any other strategy popping up. So we've talked all about genes, but this is where Dawkins makes this huge, and I mean huge, creative leap. He says, what if genes aren't the only replicators on the planet? What if there's a new one? Think about it. The basic rules for evolution are pretty simple, right? You need something that copies itself, you need some variation or mistakes in the copying, and you need some copies to be better at surviving and spreading than others. So could that same process be happening with ideas? And this is where he coined a word that you definitely know, the meme. Now, he wasn't talking about cat pictures with funny captions, at least not at first. For Dawkins, a meme is any unit of culture that spreads from brain to brain. A catchy tune, a new fashion, the idea of God, a scientific theory. It's a cultural replicator. But here's the crazy part. Memes and genes play by totally different rules. Genes are slow, plotting things, passed down vertically from parent to child over generations. Memes, they can go viral in an afternoon. They spread horizontally, from friend to friend, at the speed of sound or a single click. And just like with genes, the most successful memes aren't always the truest or the most helpful ideas. They're just the stickiest, the ones that are best at getting themselves copied and passed on. So this all might sound a little bleak, right? If we're just robots built by our genes and then programmed by the memes that happen to infect our brains, are we even in control of anything? Well, this is the book's final amazing twist, and it's actually incredibly hopeful. Dawkins says, yes, we are built by these replicators, but we are the only creatures on this planet who are smart enough to understand that. And because we understand our own programming, we can choose to defy it. And that's what makes us so unique. A beaver can't decide it doesn't feel like building a dam today, but we can. We can look at our genetic programming that screams reproduce and say, you know what? I think I'll use birth control. We can recognize our selfish biological urges and consciously decide to be generous and altruistic anyway. That's our superpower, conscious foresight. So, in the end, The Selfish Gene isn't this cynical book telling us we're all doomed to be selfish monsters. It's actually a book about liberation. It argues that by understanding the biological and cultural puppet strings that created us, we can, for the first time in the history of life on Earth, actually see them, and maybe, just maybe, learn to cut them. It leaves us with the ultimate question of what it means to be human.